This week is not just unusual, it's energetically vibrant. From July 6 to 12, the world around you may seem normal, but beneath the surface, something significant is stirring. These are not just strange moments, they are spiritual indicators, symptoms of activation, the hidden signs that you are evolving rapidly. In this video, subtle, strange and powerful signs of awakening appearing this week. Why July is not a pause, but a spiritual turning point. How emotional tension and discomfort are actually alignment in disguise. What the 777 portal and the full moon on July 10 are really doing to your timeline. Why sacred solitude and unexpected clarity are arriving all at once. Don't ignore it. This week holds keys, and your higher self has been waiting for you to notice. Watch before July 12th to understand what's happening beneath the surface and why this could be the week that changes you forever. Spirituality, astrology, astronomy, universe. The month that moves in silence but shifts. Mountains, July doesn't arrive with fanfare. It enters quietly, like a breeze that makes no sound but stirs everything within. While the world remains numbed by the heat, routines and seasonal distractions, the heavens work in silence. And there's a kind of spiritual realignment that only happens when everything seems still on the outside. It's in this apparent stillness that invisible mountains begin to shift. Because what July activates cannot be seen with the naked eye, it's felt with the spirit. Something sacred is happening behind the scenes of your soul, and even if you don't yet have the words, your body is already sensing it. Your rhythm has changed, your sensitivity has heightened, your perception has become sharper. A preparation is taking place where no one is looking, and this is the true movement of July, transformation that begins where the world cannot see. Before we continue, if this video is already stirring something within you, take this moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment below. This isn't just engagement, it's a clear signal to the universe that you're ready to dive deeper. July doesn't shout, but it calls. And only those with an awakened spirit can hear it. It summons you to a new time of clarity, but it doesn't impose, it reveals. Like light slipping through a crack, not flooding from above. Like a touch that gives you chills, not one that pushes. If you've been feeling an unexplained restlessness, a gentle but persistent pressure, a desire to change something that hasn't yet taken shape, it's because the realignment has already begun. The heavens don't expect you to understand everything now. They only need you to recognize something is happening. You are no longer the same, and no matter how much you try to fit into old molds, something inside you has already broken free. July is the month that reorganizes the invisible, not to please your logic, but to fulfill a higher agenda. The tests that don't seem like tests, the disguised judgment. July doesn't come with raised swords or epic battles. It doesn't test you with storms. It observes you in seemingly ordinary days. And that's exactly where the invisible judgment lies. When you think you're just choosing whether to respond to a message, to stay silent or react, to keep a habit or let it go, the heavens are weighing you. Every small gesture you repeat this month carries a spiritual echo. And no, you're not being judged by what others can see, but by the fidelity no one applauds. July hides its tests in routines, in innocent invitations, in disguised opportunities. Because the real judgment doesn't measure your apparent strength, it measures the purity of your frequency. You are being tested in silence. Not to prove how fast you run, but how faithful you remain when no one is watching. There are choices that seem too small to be spiritual, but they are precisely the ones that reveal who you are becoming. A yes said at the wrong time, a no spoken out of fear, a glance that pretends not to see, a delay justified by a weary soul. All of this is being noted, not as guilt, but as vibration, And every small decision in July is determining portals that open or close, not with noise, but with energetic precision. July offers you mirrors, and they aren't obvious, clean, well-lit mirrors. They are dusty mirrors, where your own image appears distorted until you muster the courage to clean them. This month reveals what you're still tolerating, even though you know you shouldn't. It reveals the micro-betrayals you commit against your own truth. And all of this doesn't come with fanfare. It comes with a gentle discomfort, a subtle lack of peace, a feeling that you're slowly sabotaging yourself. This is the disguised judgment, the time when the heavens weigh your soul, not by shouts or visible failures, but by invisible coherence. And if you feel you're being placed before difficult decisions that don't seem big enough to change your life, beware. They may be shaping your next cycle. July doesn't test your strength with external battles. It tests your integrity with small doors. And how you pass through them reveals whether you're ready to cross greater portals. The illusion of stagnation. You are moving even when still. There's a kind of silence that confuses, a kind of pause that feels like punishment. When nothing happens on the outside, the mind races to the worst place. Have I stagnated? Have I missed something? But July invites you to see with different eyes. Not every silence is absence. Not every lack of movement is failure. Something deeper is happening when everything slows down. The heavens aren't ignoring your requests. They're preparing your roots. Because before a fruit breaks through its shell, there's a long underground work, invisible, silent, and profoundly sacred. July seems still, but it's pushing you inward. While the surface of your life appears motionless, the subsoil of your soul is in turmoil. Old beliefs are loosening, past cycles are unraveling, dreams that once seemed eternal now feel irrelevant. Not because you failed, but because your soul has grown. You are in metamorphosis even without realizing it. And metamorphoses are noisy inside and silent outside. The cocoon is not a prison, it's a sanctuary. And July is that spiritual cocoon, a time when the world forgets you so that God can remind you who you are. Some things only bloom after a prolonged period of apparent stagnation. The spiritual life is not a straight line. It's a labyrinth where even dead ends have a purpose. And if you feel like you've stopped, perhaps you've only been taken off stage, so your essence could be rehearsed in the wings. It's not wasted time, it's repositioning time. The soul needs pauses to avoid getting lost in haste. And July, with all its quietness, is that divine whisper saying, I'm still here, I'm just working deeper. You're not late. You're being recalibrated. You're not forgotten. You're being regenerated. And in this uncomfortable silence, God is building a new foundation within you, one that doesn't yield to winds, unshaken by noise. July doesn't demand haste, it demands presence. It doesn't want productivity, it wants depth. And if you can remain whole without applause, without visible signs, you're proving to the heavens that you're capable of sustaining the next level, not with frenzy, but with roots. When God falls silent, the frequency of the heavens is changing. There are moments when you pray and nothing answers. You seek signs and everything feels opaque. No clear dreams, no confirming words. Just an invisible echo returning your cry with the same silence it was launched into. But what feels like absence might actually be transition. July is one of those months when the heavens shift frequency, and those who keep listening with old ears miss the chance to decipher the new code. When God is silent, He hasn't abandoned you. He's recalibrating, like a conductor pausing the orchestra to tune each instrument, like a sculptor silencing to see the next chisel strike. The heavens fall silent when they're about to do something delicate, and you are in that time. Not because you did something wrong, but because you're being prepared for something deeply right. It's as if the heavens are saying, don't speak now, listen differently. I'm not explaining, I'm tuning you. July is a month where understanding gives way to intuition. You feel before you comprehend. You move before you have clear direction. You know without proof. And that's the new listening. No longer based on logic, but on vibration. The Spirit is teaching the language of whispers, not shouts. And if you keep seeking external answers, you'll miss the inner map already lighting up. It's time to withdraw, not question. To silence, not complain. God's silence is not punishment, it's precision. It's in silence that He repositions. It's in silence that He erases the old to release the new. But it takes sensitivity to discern this, because many will mistake this phase for abandonment. And you need to know, what's happening now is not absence, it's coding. God is rewiring your spirit's antennas. He's refining your listening so you no longer depend on human voices, but recognize the voice that speaks in vibration, in atmosphere, in alignment. If you're hearing less, perhaps it's because you're being called to feel more. July is less interested in answering you and more focused on transforming you into the answer. The code of small choices, portals that open without fanfare. Some decisions make no noise but open worlds. Some gestures are so small the mind dismisses them, but the heavens record them with weight. July is the month when great changes come disguised as ordinary routines. It's when, without realizing it, you choose between keeping a pattern or starting a silent rupture. Every time you say no to what has already expired within you, even if the world doesn't see, a portal opens. A new path hints at itself. A more aligned reality begins to vibrate around you without announcement, without witnesses, without fanfare. That's the mystery of July. It doesn't reward shouts, it observes frequency. And your frequency isn't revealed in grand deeds, but in daily coherence, in how you respond to a message that irritates you, in choosing to withdraw instead of justifying yourself. In the silence, you choose to keep instead of retaliating. In the almost invisible details. July is a vibrational code, and every small choice you make is emitting a spiritual password. The spirituality of this month lies not in grand renunciations, but in small realignments. And it takes maturity to see this, because many wait for celestial signs that tear open the sky, but ignore the subtle invitations to inner realignment. You may be saying yes too much to what drains you. You may be saying no too much to what heals. And in that contrast lies the message. The universe won't shout at you. It will whisper in patterns. July is the month of energetic coding. Every gesture is a signal. Every thought you feed is a silent request. Every boundary you set is an embodied prayer. And the heavens respond not with words, but with flows. If you feel blocked, revisit the small decisions. If you feel something has stopped, review the micro choices. Because maybe you don't need to change paths, just walk with more truth. Don't underestimate the invisible. July isn't testing you with catastrophes, but with coherence. And the greatest test of this month isn't what you endure in public, it's what you correct in secret. Because it's in secret that portals open, ones no one can stop you from crossing. The oblique light. When July illuminates what was in the corner, not all light comes head-on, some come from the side. They slip through cracks, reflect off crooked mirrors, reveal what was quiet, hidden asleep on the margins of consciousness. July carries this kind of light, an oblique clarity that doesn't blind you, but forces you to see what you've been ignoring. And suddenly you realize, not as if discovering, but as if remembering, what was once invisible now leaps into view. Words you heard without weight now pierce you. Relationships that seemed stable now cause discomfort. Places that once brought comfort now feel tight. It's the light entering through the corners. July doesn't accuse, it reveals. And there's a vast difference between being confronted and being enlightened. Confrontation shames you, revelation frees you, And what's happening now is exactly that. You're being freed from blindnesses you maintained for self-protection. This gentle, almost imperceptible clarity is dissolving illusions you fed out of fear of change. And when July's light touches something that was dormant, there's no way to keep pretending you didn't see. What becomes visible becomes your responsibility. That's why this month aches in silent places. Because it's not about the other, it's about you. You who tolerated too much. You who silenced too much. You who adapted to what had already expired. And now, even without a culprit, something calls you to move, to step out of cycles that lost their soul, to disidentify from roles that no longer reflect your essence. July illuminates what was in the corner, not to shame you, but to restore your clear vision. This oblique light won't be seen by everyone. It only enters where there's openness. It only penetrates where pride hasn't locked the windows. And if you feel something within you is being laid bare, give thanks, because seeing clearly is the first step to walking in truth. July is lifting the veil with tenderness. It doesn't push you, it awakens you. And once you've seen, you can't unsee. That's the gift and the weight of spiritual clarity, the silent closure of invisible pacts. Not every ending comes with tears. Not every goodbye requires words. Some closures don't demand ceremony, only maturity. July is the month of subtle detachments, not just from people, but from invisible pacts you made with yourself, with old systems, with inherited beliefs, with roles you played to survive. You're not just losing ties, you're being freed from contracts your soul can no longer sustain. These pacts weren't made aloud. They were sealed in the silence of your automatic decisions, in promises made in the midst of pain, in masks worn to be accepted, in internal agreements of, "I'll endure a little longer." But now something inside you refuses to keep playing this invisible game. And even if your mind still tries to hold on, your spirit has already let go. What once made sense now weighs heavy. What was once refuge has become a prison. July begins to break these chains with mercy. It doesn't yank you out of place all at once. It wakes you up differently. You awaken without knowing why, but you know you can't keep forcing what has already expired. And in that silence, liberation emerges, without shouts, without fights, without explanations. Just an inner exhaustion that no longer allows you to stay. And when the heavens act like this, it's because they're undoing what you'd never have the courage to break alone. There are roles you need to stop playing, caretakers you should never have been, wounds you carry as if they were yours, partners who represent only old versions of yourself. July is closing cycles that weren't sealed with words, but with awareness. It's not that the other changed, it's that you woke up. And that awakening, even if silent, carries the sound of freedom. This is the miracle of invisible closures. No one sees, but everything changes. You don't need to justify the lightness you feel, or explain the relief that comes after leaving an expired cycle. You just know. And that silent certainty is the seal of divine intervention. July is cleaning the backstage of your soul, and the less you interfere, the freer you'll be. The spirituality of no. Protecting your frequency is part of the mission. There are moments when saying no is more spiritual than a long prayer. July is one of those moments, a time when protecting your frequency becomes a mission, not vanity. Because when the heavens accelerate your energy, any permission given out of lack becomes a leak. Any yes said out of fear becomes contamination. And at this point in the journey, pleasing others can no longer be a priority. Preserving must be. July's frequency is intense. It refines, separates, highlights, but it also attracts noise, distractions disguised as opportunities, emotional ties that return with the scent of nostalgia. And you need to understand, not everything that comes back is redemption. Sometimes it's repetition trying to disguise itself. July will test your ability to say no to what no longer serves, even when it looks familiar, even when the invitation smells like the past. And saying no to that is more than maturity. It's vibrational obedience. You don't need to justify your energetic protection. You don't need to explain the silence, the pause, the absence. There's a time when the heavens measure not only how much you love, but how much you care for yourself. Because if you don't choose yourself, you won't sustain the new things you asked for. July comes to remind you that stepping away is also spiritual. That silence can be prayer. That not responding can be a fast from noise, and the peace you build in secret is worth more than any connection kept out of habit. This is the month of shielding, of muting groups, of leaving conversations that drain, of turning off internal and external notifications, because the heavens are trying to speak to you, but they need space. And if you don't create it, the noise will take over. It's not about being rigid, it's about being conscious. With every no said with courage, a yes opens in the spiritual backstage. A yes to alignment, a yes to genuine connection, a yes to the mission you came to fulfill. Don't feel guilty for protecting your frequency. That's not selfishness, it's priesthood. July is measuring your willingness to choose truth even when it hurts, and every time you choose yourself with love and firmness, the universe responds with doors no one can close. July doesn't give you what you want, it prepares you for what you asked for. Not every prayer is answered with a miracle. Sometimes the answer is a process, a path of refined pain, necessary detachment, empty nights when the heavens seem mute. But all of this is an answer, just in a higher frequency. July doesn't deliver ready-made gifts. It delivers keys wrapped in challenge. It doesn't place in your hands what you want, but begins to transform you until you're capable of carrying what you asked for. And that requires more courage than faith. Some requests were heard, but they require a new version of you to be fulfilled. You asked for healing, and the heavens gave you confrontations. You asked for progress, and the universe gave you closures. You asked for connection, and everything you had began to break. This isn't denial, it's alignment. July is saying, before I give you what you dream of, I'll check who you've become. Because if the old still lives in you, the new has nowhere to dwell. This is the kind of preparation no one posts about, the part of the journey where you unlearn to relearn with truth, where the references that sustained you vanish, where you feel bare before your own soul. But it's in that raw space that the seed of the new begins to sprout. July doesn't care how much you desire, it cares how much you can sustain. And to sustain, you need to cross the threshold, break the shell, reconfigure within. Maybe you're thinking, but I've already been through so much, why hasn't it arrived? And the answer might be, because the last layer is still being stripped away. It's not punishment, it's refinement. July is finishing the shaping of the vessel so that what comes doesn't overflow due to immaturity. The heavens love you too much to give you something that will crush you. And so, before the miracle comes the process. Before abundance comes the emptiness that expels the unnecessary. Before the yes comes the silence that clears the ground. You are being prepared, and that preparation is, in itself, an answer. Even if it's disguised as loneliness, waiting, uncertainty, it's the heavens saying, I heard you, now I'm tuning you. The invisible closure. When everything changes, without anyone seeing, not every end is visible. Not every new beginning comes with an announcement. July doesn't close cycles with a party, it ends processes with silence. It's as if the heavens insist on finalizing certain stages far from human eyes. Without an audience, without explanations, without performance, and you only realize something has ended because you feel lightness where there was once weight, peace where there was once noise, a deeper breath without knowing why, a sigh that seems to signal it's over. July operates in the invisible. It doesn't need others to validate what you know within. You don't need to explain why you stopped responding, why you stopped insisting, why you walked away from places you frequented for years. You just know, and that knowing is sacred, because it was built in intimacy with the divine. It wasn't a logical decision, it was a silent revelation. An inner click, a whispered enough between you and God. That's the hallmark of spiritual closures. They leave no trace, but they leave marks. And those who go through this carry a new glint in their eyes, a different silence in their soul, not because they overcame something external, but because they finally realigned within. July closes doors that were open too long and opens portals no one can shut. But you only see them if you have the sensitivity to notice when something has shifted in your spirit, even if everything outside remains the same. You may not know how to name it, but something inside you knows. The cycle has turned. What held you back no longer finds support. What limited you no longer has permission. And now, without fanfare, you're in another place, even if it looks the same physically. The change was vibrational, and everything compatible with this new frequency will start finding you effortlessly. July didn't come to give you applause, it came to reposition you with discretion. And this kind of closure is the most sacred there is, because it was sealed between your soul and the heavens. Without noise, without witnesses, but with divine authority. And when this closure happens, the entire universe begins to conspire for the new that's already on its way.